Hey guys, welcome back to 31 Days of Pompoween. If you're new here and don't know what I'm talking about, then hi, welcome. My name is Pompberry and I absolutely love Halloween, and I like to celebrate by posting one Halloween tutorial a day during the month of October. And today I'm doing something quite special to me. I'm actually following some requests from my patrons on Patreon, and one of my patrons, Lauren, is actually doing 31 Days of Halloween herself, and she's doing it all based on cryptids and creatures of lore, and suggested that I do a look using that theme. Then another patron of mine said she'd love to see a look based on my travels. She suggested I do a mythic creature from Ireland since I visited there recently, but instead I'm going to do something from my own home country, and I'm going to be doing a creature from folklore. So that's kind of combining both requests into one. And you might actually know the character I'm doing because of memes. I'm going to be doing Cuca, which you might know just as the blonde alligator or the alligator with a wig from Brazilian folklore, but more popularly known from Sítio do Pica-Pau Amarelo, which is a classic children's book series in Brazil that got many TV and movie adaptations throughout the years. And so that's what the alligator with a blonde wig is from. It's from the TV adaptations of those stories. And I absolutely love Sítio do Pica-Pau Amarelo. I grew up with it, grew up reading the stories, grew up watching the shows, and I thought it was fitting to do a Cuca look, even though the memes have passed, they have gone, but I feel like that doesn't really matter. So who is Cuca? In Brazilian folklore, she is like an alligator woman, and she snatches kids who don't go to sleep when they're told. And there's a lullaby that basically says, go to sleep, otherwise Cuca will come and snatch you. Now, in Sítio do Pica-Pau Amarelo, she is basically like a witch. She's this big alligator lady who's the villain, and she's a witch. So she's both a creature from folklore, but also a character in stories. But Monteiro Lobato, the author, he incorporated a lot of characters from traditional folklore into his stories. So I love it because of that. And this look is kind of going to be a mashup of a few looks I've done in the past. Earlier this year, I did a snake look, which had a bunch of scales all over my face. So I'm going to be incorporating some techniques from that look. And last year for Pompoween, I did a Venom tutorial where I did the mouth on the neck. And I'm going to be doing that for Cuca as well. And that wasn't an original design of mine. I based it off of Yamore's body paint work, but it's still one of my favorite looks I've ever done. So if you want to check it out, click right up here. So yeah, I think I'm just going to get started and start painting myself green. But before I begin, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to click that bell button if you want to receive a notification every time I upload. So to start off, to protect my skin, I'm going to be using Derma Shield. This is a barrier cream, and this is used for people with really sensitive skin. Face paint usually tends to break my skin out, so I just like using this beforehand, and it is in the form of a foam. And also green face paint tends to stain a lot. Doesn't matter the brand, it almost always stains. So I'm also going to be applying that on my shoulders as well. To paint myself green, I'm going to be using the Makeup Forever color cream in the color M302. And I'm going to mix it with a little bit of M400 just to brighten it up a little bit. So it looks a little something like this. I also mixed in a couple drops of water because, as you can see, this paint is very thick. It's almost like an acrylic paint. And I'm going to start off with my body. I think I might need water on my brush, actually. There we go. If it's feeling too thick, then you just have to get it a little bit wet. Basically works just like an acrylic paint would. I'm kind of gonna leave this middle area blank because that's where the mouth is gonna go. And then I'm also gonna paint my face, but I'm gonna leave the bottom half of my face alone. So that's where the new mouth is gonna go. She isn't a realistic looking alligator. She's very cartoony. So I'm not gonna do it as detailed as like the snake look that I did, for example. I am gonna keep it more minimal, but I still hope it'll look cool in the end. And I'm going to leave my eyebrows alone because she's got drawn on eyebrows. So we are going to be filling those in later on. And I'm just going to do a little bit of green under my eyebrows, but I'm leaving this whole like lid area blank because I'm going to be drawing new sets of eyes on top of my lids. Wow, I mixed like way too much green paint. I haven't even used like half of it. But it is looking quite streaky. I don't know if you guys can see it, so I am going to go ahead and do a second layer. I'm actually also going to do the very sides of my neck. Now I'm going to take my Wolf face paint palette and I'm going to use the pink to start mapping out the mouth. It's going to be an open mouth all the way down my neck. So the gums are going to be right here and the teeth are going to be here. And then the opening of the mouth is going to be down here. It'll all make sense when I'm done, I promise. I think I actually painted green where I wasn't supposed to. For this illusion to work, the pink needs to go all the way back here. That's the great thing about face paints, is that you can erase them so easily. This is just a rough sketch. The shape is probably going to change a bit more later. I'm going to be taking the red from that same palette and I'm going to start mapping out where the teeth are going to go. Bringing that red down here too, and then going to start mapping out her tongue. I'm going to be drawing the teeth next, and I just don't want the white to get stained with any of the pink, so I'm just getting rid of a bit of it. Then I'm going in with the White Wolf water activated face paint. I'm taking it on a liner brush. So basically I'm just drawing in teeth wherever there's a little groove in the gums. I've decided to make the teeth a little bit longer. And I am going to have to lower the gums here. I forgot that the teeth should not start on my lips. They need to start under my lips. I'm going to fix that in a second once I'm done with the teeth. Once that's done, I'm going to take the gray from the palette and I'm going to start shading in the teeth. So I'm just going to take that and go around the perimeter of the teeth just to give the teeth some volume. Kind of blending it out at the base and then just bringing it along one side. And then I'm taking a tiny bit of white and using that to really blend those two colors together so there's a more seamless transition. So at this point my microphone stopped recording, but it's only for a little bit, it comes back later. But basically what I'm doing here is I took some white so that I could blend the pink and the red together. Then I went back with some red and I just kind of mixed those colors until I got a kind of seamless blend. Obviously keeping the red closer to the base of the teeth because that really helps to contrast with the white teeth, putting a darker red color right beside them. Then I took some white and just highlighted next to that red. That gives volume to that edge. As you can see, it looks a little bit more raised now. Then I took my Black Wolf face paint and started filling in the gaps between the teeth. And this is the stage where you can really perfect the shape of the teeth. You can clean them up to have whatever shape you want. When I first did the teeth, I did them kind of messy, just a rough sketch, but this is where you really perfect those lines. Now that I've got the inside of my mouth completely finished, I can go and fill in the rest of the green that's missing around it. I also decided to make the mouth wider, so I just expanded the black area to the sides and drew in new gums, etc., etc. Now to give volume to the tongue, I'm taking the red and running it down the middle of the tongue to create separation between the two sides of the tongue and on the outside edge to blur that black a little bit. Then I'm taking pink on the parts that I didn't fill in with the red to highlight them and make them stand out. And that's it. Back to microphone now. And I just realized the microphone was turned off for all of that. So I apologize, but as you can see, I did a lovely little voiceover to fill in the gaps. I cleaned off my brush a little bit better, and I'm taking red just so I can try to blend these edges, break down that black that's very harsh. And I'm going to take pink and highlight the two different segments of the tongue. Now I'm going to move away from the inside of the mouth for a second, and I'm going to start doing scales and other details. So I'm taking the brown from my face painting palette, and I'm actually going to start with the outside of the upper lip. So I'm just going to create like a brown line along the edge of the mouth. Her mouth is like wavy. I might do that. And then I'm going to get some green and create that wavy edge. And then I'm also going to start drawing scales in the center of the face. And for this, I'm roughly basing it off of the scales of my snake look that I did, but I have to kind of make my nose disappear. So this is going to be interesting. So I'm trying to create shapes that once I like shade and highlight everything, it'll mask the volumes of my nose. I also want to make this part seem rounded. She's an alligator, so they've got that long, rounded mouth. I'm gonna keep this like this for now. And I'm also gonna do scales on the side of my face. Nothing too complicated. And I'm gonna draw scales on the shoulders. Then here the hair is gonna be like on this part, so I'm not gonna worry about that actually at all. And I'm not gonna worry about doing scales on the forehead because of the bangs, obviously. So anything that's gonna be covered up with hair, I'm not gonna worry about it. I am, however, going to create the outline of the bottom lip, or like the jaw, really. I'm also gonna outline the gums to create separation from the outer part of the mouth. Might do a few little scales just at the very tip of her chinny chin. Okay, so to fill in the scales, I'm going to take the Makeup Forever Flash palette, and I'm going to start by highlighting them with the yellow. And I basically just want to concentrate that in the center of the scales, leaving like a gap around the edge, because I'm going to be shading the edges anyway. I'm also highlighting the brow area. I'm also going to highlight my actual lips because I want to hide them. So you can see that by doing that, it kind of flattens out this area a little bit more. I'm also going to highlight inside my Cupid's bow area, and then I'm going to darken my actual Cupid's bow, and that should help to flatten things. I'm also going to take that yellow and highlight the corners of the lips, kind of highlight those squiggly bits that I did. This will help to kind of hide my mouth too. I'm also going to highlight this area right here to try to make it look more raised. This is where I'm going to be drawing the new nose. And then I'm going to take the brown to start shading. So I'm going to shade this area to try to make it seem longer while I try to make the front of my face more protruding. I'm actually using the green in the Flash palette to kind of blend the edges of these scales a little bit, and I'm going to shade my Cupid's bow to try to flatten this out a little bit. I think I'm going to draw the nose because that will help to define the shape as well. So I'm just taking my black water activated face paint and just drawing 2 brand new nostrils. This time I'm going to take some yellow water activated paint to do some more intense highlighting, leaving a little space between the highlight and the nostril itself. You can see that adds crazy amount of volume. I'm going to do that around the lips as well. When I say the lips, I mean Kuka's lips, not mine. I want to very quickly just take some translucent powder and just powder over where I used the cream yellow and just dust it off very gently. This will set the cream and it will create a barrier that will allow me to use the water activated paints directly on top of them without slipping around, because water activated paints don't really sit well on top of the Makeup Forever Flash colors. So I'm just gonna take that paint and just highlight the little scales. And I need to try to flatten down my nose, so I'm going to highlight the outer edges of my nose, and then I'm going to shade the center. Then I kind of want to create a shadow, like a drop shadow. And the reason I'm not using black for any of this is because black with the green, it could turn really like muddy and ashy, and the brown gives richness to the shadows. I'm actually going to take some of that brown and shade under my eye. Hopefully that'll make this part stick out a bit more. I'm also going to take yellow and highlight here on the sides, so this whole thing is kind of forward. Now one thing I want to try to do is I want to try to paint the tongue up here as well, kind of continuing, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to erase some of that, just limit it to where the tongue is. Then I'm going to get some red paint and fill all that in. Then I'm going to take some pink to lighten that up a little bit, but trying to leave that darker line down the center. There's still a lot to do and it is very late and I'm very tired. I seriously considered going to sleep like this and then continuing in the morning, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Instead, now I'm going to do some highlighting on the gums and the tongue. I'm just taking a really small brush and the white face paint, and I'm just going to be doing some little kind of squiggly textures on the gums. Kind of intensifying that highlight that I did before, but also highlighting the top of the gums. And then doing the same on the bottom. I'm just trying to make the gums look juicy, you know what I mean? Then I'm going to take the red and I'm going to do some shading. So kind of what I did with the white, but like in between the white lines. And that should hopefully add a little bit of dimension to the gums. Then I'm also going to do some white squiggly dudes on the tongue, but I'm going to blend it out with a touch of the pink. I just want to add texture really. Then I'm also going to highlight the teeth. I'm going to create points of light along the edge that isn't shaded and like a big glob at the start. Do that on all the teeth. Now to finish up the mouth, I'm just going to contour the teeth a little bit more. They're a little too light colored. I want there to be a little bit more contrast. So I'm just mixing some gray with a little bit of black, kind of shade in the base of the teeth. I'm not applying this to the very edge. You can see there's a little white border at the edge. So I'm just applying it next to the highlights. This will just add more contrast, and you can see already that gives way more volume to the teeth, way more dimension. Now I'm just going to do my eyebrows just because I want to stop with detail work for a little bit. I'm going to take the Wonder Brow Brow Gel in the color Blonde, and I'm just going to use this as a base. I'm going to use a powder product on top after, because even though she's a blonde, her eyebrows are ginger, and I'm not sure why. In like every iteration of her, she's always blonde and her brows are always orange. And I'm like, what is going on here, girl? Like, are you dyeing your brows? Like, what's happening? But I'm gonna use this blonde base and then I'm gonna add an orangey toned powder on top. Then I'm going to take the Melt Cosmetics Impulsive Palette and I'm going to take the color Rule Breaker, which is this burnt orange right here. I'm going to layer that on top to give it a nice orangey tone. And I just use the brow gel basically to give the powder a creamy base to stick onto. Then I'm going to use the color Boss Lady just to darken the tips a little bit. There, now it's got a slightly orangey tint to it, but without being like super duper orange. The color I used on the tip is this one right here, which is actually a dark red, but it really helped to tone down that orange a little bit. Next, I'm going to take the Melt Gemini palette and I'm going to be using the color Leo to do some shading around the scales. So I'm taking it on a really small pencil brush. Might actually get an even smaller one. I'm kind of just shading over the brown lines, but also on the outside of the scales to give them more volume and make them stand out. And now I'm basically just shading the bottom part of all the scales on my nose. Then here in the center, I'm going to shade down the middle of my nose. And I'm going to try to shade these scales so that this part that's forward of my nose gets pushed back because I'm making it darker instead of lighter. Oh my god, my voice is failing. Can you tell it's late and I'm tired? I started this at 8:30. It is now 2:20 in the morning. I just want to go to sleep. I'm taking that and just intensifying some areas. Take that and also intensify this drop shadow we've got going on. Then I have to shade all the scales on the body as well. Now I think we're almost done. We just have to do the eyes, obviously, but to finish up the body, I'm going to take the Mehron Clown White Light to do some last highlights. And I'm taking it on a little lip brush. I'm going to take it everywhere I want some further highlighting. And what I love about the Clown White Light is that it is very, very creamy, very, very blendable. It's got a different texture than the Flash palette. I don't know how to explain it. The Flash palette slides around a lot more. This one's more of a cream that you can control, I feel anyway. Just adding like a little touch of extra highlight. You can see that really helps to bring them out. Kind of gonna create some new scales that don't have an outline just by highlighting so that these scales kind of fade. And I'm going to do the same all over where I have scales. You can just kind of do that kind of all over. And all I'm doing is I'm using a little lip brush so it kind of has the shape of a small scale already. So I'm just like pressing it down. I'm like stamping it, using it like a stamp essentially. Look at that. You get a really cool scale texture. Okay, now it's really starting to come together. For the longest time I thought it wasn't really, but now doing the little scales, it's really coming together. Now everything is pretty much done. I just have to do my eyes and that's it. I think, if I don't notice anything, but I'm pretty happy. I did kind of the little stamped texture around all the scales and I'm pretty happy with the result. Right here it is very blank because the hair is going to be sitting right here, so I really do not have to do anything in this area. I'm not even going to worry about it. So now let's do the eyes, and I'm going to be painting basically new sets of eyes just on my lids, so I'm going to have to keep my eyes closed for the full effect. So I'm gonna take the yellow color cream and use that as my base. She's got very big eyes. They are going to be much, much bigger than my own eyes. I'm actually gonna take my wolf yellow face paint and just do another layer just over that. And I'm not being super precise with the shape because I am going to clean it up with the green afterwards. And then what I'm actually going to do, because you can see this is very patchy, it's not great, I'm going to take my Clown White Light and I'm going to apply a layer on top, and hopefully the creaminess of that product will help to make this a little more even and will create a really creamy base for me to layer some eyeshadows on top of. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Sugar Pill pressed eyeshadow in the color Butter Cupcake, and I'm going to set that eye with this eyeshadow. I probably used way too many layers as a base for this, way too many products. Listen, it's late. My brain is like working on its last 2 brain cells, so you gotta cut me some slack. Now I'm going to take that green so that I can clean up around the edges. By that green, I mean the main green we've been using all along. And now I'm going to take the black face paint and I'm going to trace around the eye. Now that I've outlined both eyes, I'm going to do a little bit of shading just to make it a little bit more realistic. And I'm going to be using the ABH Subculture palette. I'm going to take the color New Wave and I'm going to apply that to the outer edges and then just gently blend that in towards the center. You can use the other brush to kind of help as well. So you just get a nice little gradient that makes the eye have a little bit of volume. Then the inner corner as well, same thing. And along the top and bottom edge. And then once that's done, I'm going to take the Sugar Pill eyeshadow in the color Taco. It's a matte white, and I'm just going to dab that just right in the middle and blend it out. And that will hopefully add even more to the effect. I'm going to kind of pack on the white, but because it starts looking ashy, I'm taking my yellow again and then just packing that right on top. And that just creates a very pale yellow. Now I'm going to take the green from my Flash palette just so I can use it as a base right under my eye and then all around this new eye, just so that the eyeshadow will have something to stick onto. Then I'm going to take the Gemini palette again, using that same color I used before, and I'm going to start shading around it. Just going over that black line, really trying to soften it. Then I'm just packing that on my lower lash line. Just really gonna try to darken under eye area so that my eyelashes just disappear when I close my eyes. And I'm just blending that down so that it kind of creates an eye socket. It looks deeper where the eye is set. You compare both sides, it looks like the eye is just really sitting into the skull. Now we're almost done. We just need to draw in some pupils. And Kuka has very tiny small pupils, and they're kind of, she almost looks cross-eyed. They're very close to the center of her face. So I don't know know if I'm gonna do that because I don't want to look cross-eyed. I don't want it to look as if I did it wrong. So I'm gonna keep it kind of at the center, but they're very, very thin. And I'm going to keep that eye closed until the paint is 100% dry. And once that's completely dried, I'm going to be extra cautious, and I'm going to take a little bit of translucent powder on a brush and just lightly dust that to make sure that it will not transfer once I open my eyes. And there's one eye done. That looks pretty damn cool, if I do say so myself. It's 4 in the morning. Was it worth it? I don't know. It's been like 7 hours and a half? 8 hours? 8 hours and a half? I don't know. I can't do math at this point. Now the hardest thing is going to be trying to match it on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my head backwards. That way I can see both eyes at the same time in the mirror. And then I can figure out where it should go. And then I can close my eye and draw the little pupil. And now that both eyes are done, I'm going to go put on my wig and I'll be back to show you the finished look. And this is the finished look. I'm actually so happy with it. Like, I did not think that I'd be able to get the illusion across at first. The first few hours had me a little worried, but I'm pretty happy. And this is ridiculous. I mean, Cuca is ridiculous. She's an alligator with a blonde freaking wig, for crying out loud. But this is pretty dope. I wish I'd painted my hands too so that I could make like little meme versions of me, because she's all like sassy and stuff. But it is what it is. I'm curious to know, have you ever heard of Cuca before? Have you ever seen the memes? I know that they were big here in the US, but I don't know if it was a global thing. I know that I got super caught off guard when they first started showing up. Like, one of my friends used a Cuca gif or something, and I was like, whoa, wait. How the fuck do you know who Cuca is? And they were like, what are you talking about? It's just the alligator meme. And I'm like, oh, no. Listen here. So yeah, I just think it's hilarious that Cuca became a meme, because I grew up, you know, seeing her on TV and reading the stories and whatnot. But yeah, this took a very long time. It is now 4:25 in the morning. I did not think I would be up so late. I figured this was gonna take about 6 hours. It took, I think, between 8 and 9 hours to do. So a little bit longer than what I had imagined. A little bit longer than what I would have liked. But I'm also kind of really glad that I did this. I never imagined that I would be doing Cuca. If you want to see me do more things based off of my culture, then let me know. Let me know down below. I would love to try to come up with other looks. Brazilian folklore has some really interesting characters. A lot of them wouldn't have super involved makeup, but it could be cool to try to come up with something. So yeah, let me know. I am going to fall asleep now, so I'm gonna go and get cleaned up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my patrons who support me, and a special thank you to my patrons who suggested not specifically this look, but something to do with folklore, something to do with my travels. Thank you so much, Lauren and Emily, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another day of Pompoween. I'll see you then. Bye.